Hey everybody, quick one before we get started. I wanted to let you know that next week we are hosting our next 7-day Conscious Love Challenge. This is a powerful opportunity for us to spend 7 full days together going through some of the most essential healing methods that heal the limiting impressions we've accumulated through past relationships, heartbreak, rejection, and pain, and open up to what it really takes to create a heartfelt, loving, committed, conscious partnership. If you haven't done the challenge yet, I don't want you to miss this opportunity. We start in 1 week, so make sure to go to the show notes right now, click that link to book your spot in our upcoming challenge, and I can't wait to see you there. Hey everybody, welcome to the Conscious Love Show. Whether you are single, you are in a relationship, or you're healing a broken heart, this show is here to inspire you, to remind you how beautiful, lovable, and amazing you truly are, and to give you the practical tools and insights to navigate from wherever you are right now to the loving relationship that you so deeply want to have. My name is Shane Kohler. I'm a certified transformational coach and trainer with over a decade experience helping people release their trauma and open their hearts to love. I've delivered seminars all over the world, coached thousands of people through my online platforms and programs, and every week I'm coming straight to you with the hottest insights and the best teachers around, bringing you powerful resources and profound conversations to heal your relationship with love, dating, and yourself. I'm so grateful you're here, and if it's your first time, welcome. You can count on me to always show up for you with my very best and a commitment to learn and grow myself so I can serve you to my maximum ability. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. I've got some awesome things planned for you today. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right. Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome back to the Conscious Love Show podcast. Shane Kohler on with you today. Pleasure to be back. Look forward to diving in. Today we are talking about why you should stop waiting for commitment and how it's lowering your value. And I was just saying, there was a really great illustration that I started with today while I was chatting with people on Instagram. And I want to go back to that because I thought it was really powerful to kind of set the tone for today's conversation. So what I said earlier, some of you were with me, but if you just joined in, then maybe you missed it. But what I said earlier was if you think about somebody who knows what they want, they ask for what they want, they communicate about it. Like if they're not getting what they want or they're not moving in the direction of what they want, then they walk away. They say, hey, this isn't for me, right? Like if you think about somebody like that, would you call that a high value person or a low value person? Right? Like very clearly that would be a high value person. And if you think about somebody who's like, well, I don't really want to talk about what I want. I don't really want to ask for what I want. I don't want to be pushy. I'm just going to be quiet and hope that things go well. And I'm not going to rock the boat. And I'm just going to wait and be patient and just give and give and give and hope that if I give enough, then somebody's going to return that, right? Like if you think about that kind of person, would you say that's a high value person or a low value person, right? That person is showing up as a low value person. Now, let me say, I don't think anybody is a low value person inherently. I think we all have the potential for high value, but we communicate our value through our actions, through our words, through the things we tolerate, through the things we don't tolerate, right? There's a great quote that some of you, I'm sure all of you probably heard one point or another, but it's something I learned a long time ago that I thought was really, really powerful is that we teach people how to treat us, right? We teach people how to treat us. Every interaction we have with a person, we are reinforcing to them the behavior that is acceptable to us and the behavior that is unacceptable. The things that we are willing to tolerate, things we are not willing to tolerate, right? So we teach people how to treat us. And it's really interesting too, because when it comes to commitment, when we talk about like commitment in a relationship, what makes someone see us as being valuable to the degree that they would want to like make a lifetime commitment with us? Or what makes someone see us as like, they're nice, they're cool, I like them, but I don't know if I want to like commit to them for life, right? Like what makes somebody see us one way or the other? And it is how we express in a lot of ways, like our relationship with ourselves, the relationship that we have with ourselves and how we communicate that relationship to others that we're in relationship with is really how we translate our value. And so what I want to start today's episode is to start by saying that waiting for commitment from someone, waiting and hoping for commitment from someone communicates that I am a low value person. Now, I said this a minute ago, but I'll just say it again. I'm not saying that you are low value or you have no value. That's not what I'm saying. I know you have incredible value. We all do. But when we wait and hope for commitment, we are not communicating clearly the value that we have. We are showing up as that second kind of person that I said earlier. Well, I'll just be quiet. I just won't talk about it. I won't push the issue. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to be too much, right? Like I don't like, God forbid somebody knows that I know what I deserve and I'm not willing to accept less, right? Like I don't want to look like that. I don't want people to think I'm full of myself or arrogant or whatever. And there is nuance here because there is a way to do this that comes off as arrogant, that comes off as pompous, that comes off as full of yourself. But there's also a way, like, I think an important distinction as we go into today's conversation is to talk about how humility, true humility, being truly humble, is not in any way diminishing myself, but true humility is having an accurate perception of myself. So I want everyone to think about that for a moment, right? When I am truly humble, it's not that I'm lowering or diminishing myself, but it's that I am perceiving myself accurately. Meaning I'm not overestimating myself and thinking I'm perfect, I can do no wrong. I'm the most attractive or the smartest or the most amazing person in the world, right? Like that's arrogant. When you start to think I'm better than others, I'm better than everyone else, I'm the best, right? That's arrogant. But then there's also I'm worse than everyone else. I don't deserve as much as everyone else. I'm less than everyone else, which is its own weird kind of arrogance, right? Like both of these are the ego, the survival, the inauthentic survival-based self, the survival-based identity, which is the ego. Both of these, whether I'm better than everyone or I'm worse than everyone, both of these are the ego seeking a sense of specialness. And I can be special by, I'm so fucked up and so damaged and like nobody would ever want me. I'm just such a loser, right? Like that's its own kind of specialness. And then there's I'm better than everyone. I'm the best. So nobody's as good as me. That's it. That's arrogance. That's a different kind of specialness. So humility isn't diminishing myself. It's an accurate perception of myself, which would be somewhere between the two. So I'm not the best. I'm not better than everyone. But I'm also not the worst. I don't deserve less than everyone. But I'm equal to everyone. And I am just as worthy as everyone else is, right? So I deserve, in today's conversation, we could say, I deserve commitment. I deserve devotion. I deserve someone who will show up for me. Someone who will love me and be dedicated, someone I can trust, someone who I can rely on, someone who will create that safe space that I can, trust in my life. I deserve that. Not because I'm better than everyone, but because I'm equal to everyone and I'm equally worthy. And I would say when we lean on the side of arrogance, right? Oh, I'm better, I'm the best. When we lean on the side of arrogance, we're actually overcompensating for a sense of like, I don't actually feel good enough. So I become arrogant because I don't feel like I'm good enough on some level, right? This is, in the extreme examples of this, that's what narcissism is, right? Narcissists are people, pathological narcissism. We all have some degree of narcissism, but pathological narcissism, extreme narcissism, is somebody who has created a delusional universe that revolves around them. And they're the center of it because they're overcompensating for such a deep wounding and deep feeling of like unworthiness and insecurity. And so Our arrogance is an overcompensation, but humility, as I've been saying, is an accurate self-image, an accurate self-appraisal. And so humility actually communicates high value. So going back to the two examples, there's one person who says, I know what I want, I know what I deserve. I'm going to ask for it, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to assert that in a relationship. And if a relationship isn't on track for that, or at least demonstrating real potential for that, then I'm going to walk away. And then there's the other person who says, I don't want to be too much. I don't want to look needy or desperate. I don't want to put pressure. I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to lose someone. I don't want to be alone. And so I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to hold back and I'm going to hope for the best. The first person, the first example that I'm talking about here, in their thoughts, their words, their actions, and everything they do, they are communicating the value that they see within themselves. In the second example, they are communicating the fact that they don't see value in themselves. Right? They are communicating that I don't really think I'm worth commitment. I don't really think I'm worth devotion. And so I'm going to hold back. I'm going to hide. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to assert that. I'm not going to push the issue. I'm going to give everything I have to give. I'm going to try really, really hard to prove myself. I'm going to try really, really hard to show them just how wonderful I am and how great I am and how much they should love me. And I'm just going to hope that if I give and give and give and give, at some point they will value me. At some point they will love me. And so we end up waiting around for that commitment. Now, what I really want to talk about in today's episode, among other things, but I think one of the core points I want to touch on is that rather than waiting for commitment, we create commitment. And that is an active process. It's not a passive process, right? I'm not passively sitting back and saying, I hope this goes somewhere and I'm just going to try to be my best and give everything I have to give and hope they like me, right? It's an active process. So I'm leaning into the relationship in a way that leads towards the commitment that I want to have. And there's an unspoken dynamic in the relationship that's present all the time. It's underneath every interaction. It's underneath every conversation. And what that is that I could leave at any time. I could walk out the door at any time. Like you could lose me at any time. And I want to be clear. I don't mean this in a threatening way. You know, there are people who go to the extreme with this and they use it as a manipulation tool and they're always hanging it over the person's head. Like, if you don't do this, I'm going to leave. Or if you don't do that, I'm going to leave. I'm not talking about it like that. But I'm talking about that I am so connected to my value, to my worthiness, to what I deserve, to the vision that I have for my life, in the same way that I deserve that, like in the same way that everybody deserves to have their dreams come true in life, I deserve that equally to everyone else. And so I'm connected to that. I'm not settling for less. And there's an unspoken dynamic in the relationship where it's not that I need to come out and say to this person, if you don't commit to me, I'm leaving. And I'll talk about, what do we actually say? How do we actually speak this? But it's not that you need to give an ultimatum like that and just come out and say it. But this person can sense, they can understand in the way that you carry yourself, in the kinds of conversations that you bring up, in the way that you maintain boundaries and standards. This person can pick up not on what is spoken, but what is unspoken in the relationship, that, wow, I know that this person has a certain standard for what they're looking for. I know that this person is expecting a certain direction for this relationship, and I know that if I don't rise to that occasion, that I'm going to lose this person. And, it's kind of like if you think of trading stocks or investing in general, right? And investing in anything. And a relationship is an investment, right? You invest your energy in a relationship. If you think of investing, there's a rule that's pretty much valid across the board, no matter what you're investing in, if it's a business, if it's a stock, if it's a relationship. And it's high risk, high reward, low risk, low reward, right? That's like a universal law. It applies to everything. It applies to relationships. It applies to everything. And so if you are showing up to relationship in a low risk way, it's like investing in stocks in a low risk way. You're not going to lose, but you're also not really going to win. But if you show up to relationship in a high risk way, meaning I am willing to risk the relationship, I am willing to put it on the line. I am willing to either have it be everything or have it be nothing, but not anything in between. You will lose sometimes. Now, the great thing about this, it's not like investing in a stock where if you put all your money into it and it's a high risk and you lose, you actually lose. Like that, it's actually like you win no matter what. And this is the thing that's wonderful about it. While it's uncomfortable, while it's, emotionally challenging, this is the thing that's wonderful about it. Is that you win no matter what, because when you show up to a relationship, high risk, high reward, it's either going to be everything or it's going to be nothing, but not in between. Then one of two things is going to happen, and it's going to happen relatively quickly, I would say. I mean, there's some nuance there, but I'll come back to that. But what's going to happen is, I would say, within the first 3 months of you getting to know this person, you're either going to be on track for a long-term committed relationship, or it's just going to be over. Now, when I say on track, yes, a lot of things can go wrong. That's why I say when I say it's going to happen quickly, well, you'll get out quickly. But if it's actually going to go somewhere, you can get on track quickly. But then maybe a year in, you find out you have different interests, you go different ways. So it's not a guarantee. And I'll go into some of the nuance of this. But in a period, so let's just say 3 months, in that first 3-month period, you will either get this relationship on track for a long-term commitment, or it will end. And what I want to really communicate to everybody today, as we talk about not waiting for commitment, in every new interaction or new relationship you build with someone, go into it like that. Like, I'm giving this 3 months, and if we're not on track for the kind of relationship I want to have, then we'll just be done. Now, that takes a lot of courage, takes a lot of resilience, takes a lot of emotional strength. That's not easy to do. But then again, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it, and we wouldn't have all these, crazy situationships in which people are miserable and unfulfilled all the time. Right? So it's not easy, but it not being easy is what makes it worthwhile. And I think it's important to say here too that in this conversation, I'm assuming that you want commitment. So if you don't want commitment, that's fine. You can do whatever you want, right? Like I'm not saying what you should or shouldn't do. If you don't want commitment, then you don't even need to listen to this podcast. Just go play the field and have fun. But if you want commitment, today I'm going to tell you how to get it. Now, when you show up, as I've been talking about, high risk, high reward, right? We're either going to be on track for the whole deal, or it's not going to go anywhere. One or the other, but nothing in between. Now, when you show up like that, you communicate yourself. And again, communication is not just your words. Actually, body language experts will tell you that 90% of communication is nonverbal. Right? So it's not just your words. It's your energy, it's your actions, yes, it's your words partially, but it's so much more than that. It is your whole being. It is the way you carry yourself. It is the way you express in every sense of the word. And so when you show up, high risk, high reward, it's going to be everything or it's going to be nothing. You are communicating in the very essence of your being that I am high value, that I deserve everything. And I'm so clear that I deserve everything that I'll let this relationship become nothing if that's what having everything means. Now, I'd say the way most people do it. You meet someone, maybe you meet them through a dating app or a friend or party or whatever, but you meet someone and there's some rapport there. There's some connection there. It's exciting. It feels good. A lot of us feel very starved for connection. I think it's becoming more and more a reality in today's world where everything is more and more disconnected through social media and dating apps. And it's becoming more and more a reality where we feel starved of connection, which is actually an illusion because I don't have time to really go into detail about this today, but you think about it, like we all feel starved of connection, but everybody feels that way. And so if you go anywhere, everybody there is starved for connection in the same way that you are. And theoretically, it would be very easy to connect with people if you feel starved of connection and they feel starved of connection. Both of you have a need that you could meet for each other. So it's actually not hard to connect. A connection really isn't scarce, but we're so used to living behind our screens that we've lost the ability to actually connect with people. So there are skills you can learn to actually go into anywhere, go into the bank, go into the post office, go into the, restaurant or bar or wherever, and just like start talking to people, and you can meet that need for connection that they have. And all of a sudden there's an electric connection. So we feel like connection is scarce, but that's actually an illusion. The potential for connection is everywhere. We've just lost the practical skills to bridge that gap. But I've done other episodes on that. I'm not talking about that today. But what I wanted to say is that so many of us feel this scarcity of connection because we're so disconnected. We're living behind our screens all the time. And so when we make a solid connection with someone, we say, oh my God, I have to hold on to this. And so then we're automatically playing in defensive. Right? Where offensive would be, as I've been saying, like, I know what I want. I know what I'm looking for. I'm either going to have everything or nothing, but I'm not going to land somewhere in the middle. But rather than showing up in offense, we show up in defense, protection. I never meet anyone like this. It's so hard to find connection with dating apps and everything else. And so I'm so scared for connection. I'm in so much scarcity of connection that when I feel like I connect with someone, I feel like I have to hold on to it for dear life. And that puts me in defensive mode. And so in defensive mode, I'm saying, what do I have to do to make this person happy? What do I have to do to get them to like me? What do I have to do to make sure they never leave? I can't get back on the dating apps. I can't go back to being single. It's too hard. It sucks too much. It's so lonely. I don't want to deal with it. So I just have to make this work. And when you go into that defensive mode, I have to hang on to this. I have to keep this. I can't let this go. You automatically start showing up as low value. Because the message you're sending to that person is, I'll basically deal with anything as long as you don't leave me. I'll do whatever I have to do. I'll be whoever you want me to be as long as you don't leave me. And the ironic thing is while showing up that way may stretch the relationship out a little bit longer, where originally it would have been over in 3 months, maybe you stretch it out to 6 months or a year. you never cultivate the kind of respect in that relationship that would actually have it be long-term, like lifetime. So while you stretch it out a little bit by hanging on to it, every moment that you're stretching that out and hanging on to it, you're actually not cultivating that person's respect and admiration of you as a partner. Because no matter how cool you try to play it, and this goes back to something I was saying earlier. I was talking about the difference between like arrogance and self-depreciation. And how when I'm arrogant, I'm just overcompensating for self-depreciation. So what we might really feel is a sense of self-depreciation, right? I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of this person's love or their dedication or their devotion or their commitment. And then we try to play it cool to cover that up, right? Well, I don't want to let them know that I feel that way, so I'm going to try to play it cool. But you can't really play it cool is the thing. Especially when you're really intimate with someone, like especially when you're in that close of a relationship. Like you could be really insecure and show up to a meeting at work and put on a good act and kill that meeting and fool everybody. But when you're sharing your life with someone day in and day out, and they're seeing all the different facets of you, you can't really play it cool. So while you might play it cool in the beginning, if you're in that defensive mode, if you're trying to hang on to it, what's going to happen over 3 months or 6 months or over a year is that person is going to pick up on it. And while they may keep you around because maybe they're settling, maybe they don't have anything else going on, maybe they're in a place where they just need some company or they just need to entertain themselves or whatever the reason might be, they're not going to ever be really devoted to you because the way you are showing up for them, being in that defensive survival mode, is actually lowering their respect for you. So the only way to really win is high risk, high reward. And knowing that I'm going to win either way. Because when I meet somebody, we have that rapport, we hit it off, there's that connection, there's that excitement, right? Well, I mentalize myself, okay, this is exciting, I like this person, I want to explore where this goes, but I know, like I'm really clear, I know that this person, like this is either going to become everything or it's going to become nothing. And I'm not settling for anything in the middle. So now, as I show up to that relationship, everything I communicate is communicating that I know what I deserve. I know my worth. I know my value. I know that I deserve someone's dedication, commitment, devotion. And if you're not willing to bring that to this relationship, you don't deserve the privilege of having me in your life. And it's worth saying too that doesn't mean they're a bad person. That doesn't mean you have to hate them or call them a narcissist or go, talk shit to all your friends about them. It just means that they weren't in the place where you wanted the same things. Part of emotional maturity is a deep acceptance of not everybody wants the same thing that I want. Even if they maybe want it in the big picture, not everybody is ready to go there. At the same time, I'm ready to go there. And that's okay. So when I meet that person, we have that connection, there's that excitement, it starts to go somewhere. That's awesome. That's exciting. I love it. I'm ready for it. And at the same time, I'm grounding myself in the awareness that that connection, that excitement is only the beginning. And it needs to evolve into more, not less. Hey there, listeners. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you really prioritized your mental health? If life feels overwhelming, stressful, or just plain chaotic, I've got something that could truly make a difference. I want to introduce you to Aura, the #1 app for emotional wellness. Aura offers personalized mindfulness and mental health support that fits your life. Whether you're looking for guided meditations, soothing sleep sounds, life coaching, or breathwork exercises, Aura has something for everyone. The best part? It's tailored specifically to you. Aura learns your preferences and creates a daily routine that supports your unique emotional needs. Now, here's the exciting part. As part of my podcast family, Aura is giving you an exclusive 7-day free trial. That's a full week to explore their library of thousands of wellness tools and discover what works best for you. So take this opportunity to reset, recharge, and show up for yourself. Head to the link in the show notes right below wherever you're listening to this podcast to claim your 7-day free trial. Don't wait. Your mental wellness is worth it. Let Aura help you find peace, balance, and clarity right at your fingertips. Go ahead. Try it today. You deserve it. Hey everybody, I wanted to let you know that next week we are hosting our next 7-day Conscious Love Challenge. This is a powerful opportunity for us to spend 7 full days together going through some of the most essential healing methods that heal the limiting impressions we've accumulated through past relationships, heartbreak, rejection, and pain, and open up to what it really takes to create a heartfelt, loving, committed, conscious partnership. If you haven't done the challenge yet, I don't want you to miss this opportunity. We start in 1 week, so make sure to go to the show notes right now, click that link to book your spot in our upcoming challenge, and I can't wait to see you there. But this is something I really want everyone to understand. When you have that initial spark, that attraction, that excitement, that rapport with someone, when a relationship starts to take off, see, a lot of people think that if I find that and I just hold on to it, then it'll work. Then I'll get commitment. That's not how it works. It's everything that happens after that that really determines where that goes. You see, there are a lot of people who are maybe theoretically not ready for commitment. If you ask them a week before they met you, they'd be like, oh, I'm not ready for commitment. I'm just looking for something casual. But then they meet you and they share some experiences with you and they start to experience you as a high value person. And they say to themselves like, wow, I didn't think I was ready for commitment, but it's not often I meet someone like this. And I know because of the way they're showing up that I need to get ready if I want to have them in my life. And so that person gets ready because of how you showed up for them. But going back to what I've been saying, in order to really get that point across, you've got to be willing to lose it too. There is no way to play it safe and express high value. And that's what I think so many of us are trying to do, right? We're trying to find someone, have that connection, hold on to them, play it safe, do whatever I can to keep them, and still somehow show up as a high value person. That doesn't work. Because the very energy of playing it safe expresses low value. The willingness to lose someone, to let them go, in and of itself is what demonstrates that you are a high value person. If you're not willing to lose them, you cannot communicate your value effectively. So, now that we've established that was like the first thing. That was the most important thing. Let's talk about the process of actively creating commitment. Because as I said earlier, rather than waiting for commitment, we're creating commitment. So I'm not just waiting around and hoping like, oh, please, pick me, love me, choose me. I'm showing up and saying, if you don't pick me and love me and choose me, you're going to lose me. So how do we do that? Because it probably doesn't work to show up on a first date and be like, if you don't pick me and love me and choose me, you're going to lose me. Like that doesn't work, right? That's not effective. So I like to talk about the timelines of a relationship. And I know I often mention this on the podcast, but I'll just do a quick review here for those of you who maybe haven't heard this before. So I talk about the timelines of a conscious relationship. And the timelines are 3 months, 1 year, and then 1 year and beyond. And so 3 months is enough to establish a few things. It's enough to clearly communicate what you're looking for long term. It's enough to establish an agreement between the two of you that if you continue on beyond that 3-month mark, that's the direction you're going. Right? Sometimes people will come to me and they'll be like, I've been with this person for 2 years. We've never talked about marriage. They're not proposing. It's like, well, and I want to say, if you end up in that position where, you're like a year plus into a relationship and you want to get married, but you've never talked about it and they're not taking any action towards it, that's hard to come back from. Because you've already established the relationship as a casual thing. They clearly aren't interested in moving it forward themselves. And because you haven't created the understanding and the agreement in the relationship that that's where this is going, you've allowed them to get too comfortable in the casualness of it. That's hard to come back from. Now, every situation is different, and I'm not saying that it's impossible to come back from. But it's a lot easier if you establish it on the front end. Right? As I said earlier, somebody may be in a casual mindset, but when you present yourself as a high-value person and they're like, wow, I really want this person in my life, they can shift into a committed mindset. But if you don't ever do that, you allow that casualness to continue. So 3 months is enough to establish your long-term vision. Create an agreement in the relationship that if we move beyond this 3 months, that's the direction we're going. And then I'd say the third thing is you establish exclusivity. Meaning that we are sincerely exploring a relationship with each other and not anyone else. Those are the 3 things to establish in the first 3 months. Now, this is not a strict rule, 3 months to the day, cut it off. That's not what I mean. Given the nuance and the nature of the relationship, given how often you see each other, how busy your schedules are, maybe it's 4 months. Maybe it's 2 months. Right? My wife and I, when we started dating, we established this in about 6 weeks. But we were also long distance. We were talking on the phone every single day. So we built a lot of rapport in those 6 weeks. But generally, think of 3 months as a rule, and you can judge it individually based on the specific nuance of your situation. But you need to establish a long-term vision for the relationship, establish an agreement that you're moving in that direction together, and establish exclusivity, meaning we're seeing each other, we're not seeing anyone else. And you need to do all of that within the first 3 months. Now, if you do all of that within the first 3 months, that relationship has a really strong start. It's not a guarantee. And so I talk about high risk, high reward. Right? So there's high risk here. And I want to be honest about that. I'm not saying that if you establish that in the first 3 months, then you're going to ride off into the sunset, live happily ever after. No, that's just the first step. So we could call that the discovery phase, the first 3 months. Then you have the next year following that, right? We could say 3 months to about 18 months-ish. That's what I call the building phase. That's when you figure out if you really have what it takes to make it in a relationship. When I look at all of my past relationships prior to my wife, they all ended within this window. Like every relationship that made it past those first 3 months, we were exclusive, we were together, they all ended within this window. So about 3 months to 18 months. Around the point of a year, sometimes like 8 months, sometimes like 12 or 14 months. That's how long it took me or the other person to get clear that we didn't want this. And those are painful breakups, right? You invest a lot with someone in a year. But if you do the groundwork in the first 3 months, you set up the relationship on the best possible foundation. And then what happens in that first year? Well, you exit the honeymoon phase to a degree. They say the honeymoon phase goes on for about 2 years, but to a degree, you exit that initial honeymoon phase where you're driven by hormones and dopamine and things like that. And then you start to come down to earth. You start to not feel so great about everything all the time. You don't necessarily feel so in love all the time. You're dealing with real life stuff if you have kids or work schedules or things like that, or, managing commitments, managing things like if jealousy comes up or who's that friend that you're hanging out with. You go through all those kinds of things. The real work that's done in the second phase, the building phase, that's where you start to work through things together. You start to have real conversations with each other. You start to have like conflicts of different kinds and resolve conflicts together. A lot of people will start working with a therapist or a counselor during this time. Not that you have to, but it's a really great thing as you're building the foundation of your relationship to do it with some guidance and some support. This is where you start to experience each other's childhood wounds, right? Things like abandonment or fear of rejection or things like that. This is where attachment styles become really active, right? If someone's anxious or if someone's avoidant. And you start to see these energies presence themselves in the relationship and you start to communicate about them. This is where you start to express what you need and get on board with each other and see if you can meet each other's needs. So there's a lot that happens in this year. And we could say if you go through this year and you really learn and grow through these things together and you work on healing your attachment styles with each other and you work on meeting each other's needs and you have difficult discussions and you work through problems and all the different kinds of things that are going to come up around kids and work schedules and life and family and, friends and all this stuff, everything that comes up. And if you consistently come together and work through those things, around a year or 18 months into the relationship, you enter into what I call the commitment phase. And the commitment phase is where you start to really, maybe that's where you would get married or you'd move in together. The commitment phase is where you really start to make long-term commitments together. It's right. It's like you've been through all the ups and downs of the first year and a half. You've worked through so much of the stuff that people need to work through when they're merging their lives together. You have a degree of security in your relationship with each other. And now you can move on to the next step. Now, again, these are loose guidelines. Some people enter the commitment phase in 2 years. But if you're wondering, am I on track? Well, the question is, are you doing the work in each of these phases? Because, it's important to say here, this isn't about time. This is about the work that you do in the time. And so what I mean by that is that, there are a lot of people who have been together 10 years And they got together and they were driven by hormones and they fell in love and they were madly in love and crazy about each other. And then right after that, maybe they got engaged and then they got married and then they had kids. And then they went through all these stages, but they never really did any conscious work on their relationship. And so that's where, they've been together a long time, but they haven't really solidified any kind of foundation for the relationship they have. And so what ends up happening is these are the people who usually get divorced 10 years in. Because they never really had a real strong relationship. They just kept doing the next thing. And then before they know it, they've been together 10 years and they have 3 kids, but they don't even really love each other or have any solid connection with each other. Some of you have been through that. You know exactly what I'm talking about. So what is the work? I want to go through each of these phases and talk a little bit about the work that's done in each phase. Some of it I've already spoken about, but I'll go through it again. The discovery phase. So let's talk about the discovery phase is where you establish the direction of the relationship. Right? You establish the direction of it. So this is the first 3 months. It's really, really important that you do this in the first 3 months. Because if you get a year in with someone and you haven't done this, that it's as I said earlier, it's hard to come back from. It's hard to undo that because you've already established the dynamic of the relationship. And now you're trying to change something that you've already been in a flow with someone for so long. So it's really important to establish this in the first 3 months. And, just kind of step by step. The first thing is to just say what you want. And I've often said, you can do this on a first date. You could do this on a first phone call. You don't have to, right? So I'm not saying every time you talk to someone for the first time, you have to come out and say this. You can let it be organic. You can let it be natural. But definitely by your second or third date, you need to put it into the space. And so you would say something like, let's say it's the end of the first date and you've had a great first date. You like the person. You're excited about the connection. You're thinking, I would love to see this go somewhere. And maybe at the end of the first date, you say something to the effect of, listen, I've had a wonderful time tonight. It's been really great getting to know you. I would love to see you again. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I just need to be honest with you about something. I'm not looking for something casual. I am looking for a life partner. I'm looking for someone that I could maybe one day marry and have kids with, or whatever your vision is. And I just want to know, are you open to that? Because I don't want to get too far into something that has no potential of going there. So I just want to be honest with you about that up front and see where you are. Now, a lot of people wouldn't want to do that because they'd be like, it's the first date. What if they say no? I'm going to sabotage this connection too early on. If I gave them more time to get to know me, they would turn around and it's that's the problem. Because rather than owning your value, rather than owning what you want as valid, as worthy, you're already from day one trying to play into what they want. If they don't want the same thing I want, maybe I can somehow manipulate and make them want it. Right? That's you're already on the wrong track. So come out and say that on a first date, sure. Or you could do it on a second date. It doesn't have to be the first date, but you need to do it early on. And I just want to go back to what I just said because there's some powerful things in there. Right? I said earlier that the greatest power you have in a relationship is your ability to walk away. And there needs to be an unspoken dynamic in the relationship between you in which that person understands that it's all or nothing. Right? Like that needs to be communicated between you, that that person understands it's all or nothing. And so something I just said was, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I don't want to get too wrapped up in something that doesn't have the potential to go there. You're not coming out and saying, if you're not on board with this, I'm out. But it's implied in what you say. From day one, from the very beginning, you are setting the stage. You are establishing the dynamic that says, if we're not on track to go somewhere, then we're not going anywhere. From the very beginning, you are establishing that this is not a free ride. You don't get to just keep me in your life to indulge you in whatever way you want without being connected also to what I want. You are setting the stage for the relationship from day one. Now, if you do that on your first or your second date or one of your first few phone calls, if you communicate that early on, then let's say, they say, one other thing I want to say here is they might say no. Well, I was just looking for something casual. Right? So you say, I don't want to get wrapped up in something casual. I'm looking for something long-term. And they say, oh, well, I was just looking for something casual. That's not really me, right? And you say, oh, that's a shame. I would have loved to spend more time with you, but it's probably best that we don't take this any further if that's the case. They were testing you. They were testing you to see if you're full of shit or if you really mean what you say. Now, maybe they weren't testing you. Like maybe they were just being honest, and then if that's the case, that's the end. Right? You'll probably never talk to each other again. It was a great first date. Wonderful meeting you. I wish you the best. Hope you find what you're looking for. I'm going to go find what I'm looking for. Lots of love. But sometimes what they'll do is they'll test you. They'll want to see what they can get away with. They'll want to see if they can bring you down to their level. This person said they want one thing, but let me see if I can bring them down to my level and get them to be okay with what I want. And then if you do, now you've really communicated low value. Now you've really just put it all out there that I don't mean what I say. I'm not true to myself. And that's a really bad position to be in. But what will often happen is they'll go home after that date and they'll be thinking to themselves like, wow, that was a freaking awesome person. Like, well, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I should be open. Like, if I was going to commit to someone, this would be the kind of person I'd want to commit to. Am I really just going to let this person walk out of my life and never see them again? Maybe I should rethink this. And then they call you and they say, hey, I've been thinking, I think I can be open to it. Do you want to go on another date? Because going back to what I said earlier, you demonstrated your value by walking away. And now they're going, holy shit, am I going to lose this amazing person? I should give them a chance. Like, I should be a little more careful. That's not always going to happen, but it might. And I've seen a lot of really amazing relationships happen that way. Right? People end up getting married and being together long term, and it started just like that. Because one person presented themselves as such high value that it called the other person up to their level rather than them dropping to the other person's level. Now, if you have that conversation, date 1, date 2, something like that, early on, it's very natural if you continue going on dates and maybe you've been on 4, 5, 6 dates, you've had some phone calls in between, you're spending time together, you're starting to establish a routine and some regularity. There's an actual relationship taking shape, and all of this is happening within the first 3 months or so. At a certain point, it's very reasonable to check in. Hey, Where are we? And it's reasonable to check in because you've already set the tone from day one. But if you didn't set the tone on day one, and then you've been seeing someone for 3 months, and now you're going like, hey, I'm looking for a commitment. Well, yeah, they might be ready for it, but it's so much more powerful when you've established that from the beginning. Because now you're not getting the relationship on a certain track and trying to switch tracks. You got it on that track from day one. Now you're just continuing down the track you were already on. So this might be where you have a conversation about, hey, I want to be honest with you. I'm starting to develop some strong feelings. I really enjoy our time together. This is the kind of connection that I'm looking for. This is something I would like to see be a long-term thing. Where are you? You've already established from day one that's what you wanted. Now you're following up and saying, I think I might want this with you. Where are you? And if that person says they're in the same place, then that might lead to a conversation of, okay, let's get off the dating apps. What do you say we really just give this a shot between us? We stop seeing other people and see what we could create together. And if you establish all of that within the first 3 months, now you're in what I would call the building phase, where you've established like, okay, we want the same things. We're headed in the same direction. We have decided and agreed that we want this with each other, and we're not seeing anyone else. And so now we're actually exploring what a real relationship would be like between us. And I spoke about this in more detail earlier, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. But this is where you start to, okay, we deal with real life together, right? When we're not flooded with hormones, when we're dealing with stress from work and stress with kids, and your ex-boyfriend is calling you or whatever, right? Like, this is where we start to deal with real life together. How do we handle challenges? How do we learn to communicate through difficulty? When we have expectations, like, I would like to talk to you every day, or have a text or a phone call in the morning, or whatever. Like, how does that person meet those expectations? How do we show up for each other? How do we prioritize the relationship? We have the kinds of conversations that move the relationship forward in terms of vision and where we're going. And this I would say, like, this is the make or break period, where if you can really lean into the relationship together for a whole year and work through all the different things that might come up, you have a really, really solid foundation. So when you decide to get married, or you decide to move in together, or have kids, or whatever it is that you're doing, you're not just doing it on a feeling that's going to be fleeting and go away. You're making those bigger commitments out of a solid foundation that you've intentionally built every step of the way. And so, to bring it back to the original topic, right? Waiting for commitment lowers your value. Hoping for commitment lowers your value. The greatest power that any one person has in any relationship is their willingness to walk away from it. And it doesn't matter like how much you like the person, how attractive they are, how smart they are, how charismatic they are, how much fun they are. Like, that doesn't really matter if you can't have the kind of relationship you want with that person. Holding on to them and hoping that one day it's going to change, that doesn't really do anything for you. And I think like the foundational belief we've got to break here is that if I hold on long enough, if I try hard enough to prove myself and to show them how great I am or how great I could be or how great we could be together, that one day it'll change the tide. Like, that's the foundational belief we've got to break here. Because I said this earlier, but I'll say it again here. The longer you do that, the more you lower your value in the eyes of the other person. The more you give and give and give and give, while they're not meeting you with an equal reciprocation, you're not showing them how great you are so that one day they're going to suddenly love you. You're showing them how much you'll tolerate. You're showing them how much you'll put up with. You're showing them how long you'll wait. You're communicating the message that I don't value myself. I don't value my life. I don't value my time. I don't value my energy. I'll give it and give it and give it and just hope for the best. But that's the belief that we fall into that keeps us waiting around for commitment. It's like a gambler's mentality, right? Well, if I just put one more quarter in the slot machine, I could win. Just one more day, just one more week, just one more month. Let me just wait a little bit longer. Maybe I'll finally get that big payout. So going back, we're shifting from a gambler's mentality to an investor's mentality, right? I'm investing in a partnership that gives satisfying returns. I don't mean to make this unromantic, but there's a recognition that my time, my energy, my presence is valuable. It's worth something. It deserves an equal reciprocation. It deserves an equal return. If I'm going to communicate my value in a relationship, I need to do that from day one. And that means I know what I want. I'm clear about it. I ask for it. I communicate that within the relationship. And if someone can't offer me that, I'm willing to let them go. And, one thing I'll say, I didn't have a lot of time to get into this today, but I'll just say this in the end and maybe I'll follow up in a future episode about it. This requires you to face your own discomfort, right? So whatever wounding you might have around abandonment, whatever wounding you might have around not being enough for someone or trying to prove yourself or needing to be chosen by someone. This requires you to actually heal that. So where the other dynamic is a perpetuation of your wounding, this actually requires you to heal your wounding. And maybe that'd be great for a future episode where I just talk about how we actually heal that, which I've done in past episodes too, but maybe I'll circle back to that in the upcoming, in near future. But so I want to end with that today. And I really just want to presence the idea that you cannot wait and hope and communicate high value at the same time. You cannot give and give and give and give and give to someone without reciprocation and at the same time communicate your high value. And it comes back, as I said earlier, there's a humility, not a self-depreciation, but a self-recognition. Right? Humility is not me diminishing myself. Humility is me recognizing myself accurately. And that recognizes that I deserve love, I deserve dedication, I deserve commitment, I deserve safety. I deserve to rely on someone who's going to show up for me. And because I recognize that and I know what I deserve, I'm not going to accept less. And me observing that standard consistently across the board, even when it's difficult, even when it's scary, even when I come up against my wounding or my shame or my trauma. That's how other people will experience me as high value, as somebody they want to commit to, as somebody who is worthy of commitment. So thanks everybody for being with me today. Always a pleasure to be on here with you. Lots of love, lots of blessings. I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye. Thanks again for checking out the show. Please subscribe on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on the most. And I would love it so much if you leave a review and tell people what you think of us. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram @TheLivingRelationship to connect more closely. And I'm grateful to be supporting you on your journey to love.